Hello everyone, welcome to the Scotch Malt Whisky Society July Outturn Big Drop. We are trying something a wee bit different this month. We're going to take a look ahead to what's coming in the Outturn landing tomorrow. I should introduce myself. I'm Richard Gosselin. I edit the Society's members magazine Unfiltered, and I'm very happy to be joined tonight by our very esteemed spirits manager, Euan Campbell, and SMWS ambassador Julien Willems. And I would normally be enjoying these guys' company in the vaults, propping up the bar, having a wee sample of some of the Outturn drams coming up. But for various reasons, we can't be there tonight. Euan, because you're still recovering from COVID, right? And
Yep.
Julien, because you're in Belgium. But lovely to connect virtually with you.
Lovely to see you guys.
How are you
Likewise,
feeling? You capable of drinking a few drams?
Oh, I always think I'm past the worst of it now.
Good. And you're heading back soon, Julien?
Yeah, I'll be heading out on Saturday. So not long now.
Excellent. So we've got a cracking Outturn as usual. It's always good, but we're looking ahead to July, landing tomorrow, 9 a.m. And I wanted to go through some of the drams, have a chat about some of the whiskies. We're going to be hearing from Helen Brownless in a little bit because she's lined up some fantastic cocktails to coincide with some national days, which are coming up through July. But, you know, we're here to sample the whiskies and have a wee drink. So we're going to kick off with this absolutely cracking dram. It's cask number 13813. And it's called Come Eat Me with a Spoon. So Euan, what do you want to tell us about this one?
Okay, well, so this one is from our Juicy Oak and Vanilla flavour profile. Initial nosing, it's just bursting with that kind of dark vanilla pod, very kind of custardy. So at 6 years old, full term maturation in a first fill ex-bourbon barrel, but the key being that it's been matured in a very humid tropical-like climate, which really intensifies a lot of the flavours. It's just very heady and exotic and appealing. It's a really good place to start, I think.
Yeah, cracking place to start. Julien, what do you think?
Tastes as smooth as it smells. It smells quite exotic drams. You can just really sit back, enjoy. That'll be perfect for a Friday evening, if it were Friday evening. But, Thursday will do.
We've done a few drams from Taiwan already, right?
We have indeed. So yeah, we tend to release a few from Distillery 138 each year. We've actually got the next lot will be setting sail for these shores shortly, and they will likely be bottled near the end of this year for release 2023. So we're always thinking ahead to the next releases.
Quite a few of them have been peated, haven't they? Or a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. So quite a variety of this distillery.
Yeah, and interestingly, we did quite a few from New Oak barrels as well. So super intensity when you've got that hot climate maturation and really active oak. The peated stuff that they produce is fantastic as well. So always lots going on.
I remember it tasting of a type of smoked pecan pie. That was the first one bottle.
But that's cracking at 6 years old. That's like, wow, it's really packing a punch, isn't he?
Yeah,
I just added
lots
a bit
of
of
spice.
water. Just added a bit of water. It's quite sweet.
Yeah, 57% ABV. So it's still certainly packs a punch, but lots of baking spices and stuff in the taste. I think with water, it's gone quite now more juicy fruit, kind of bubble gum.
Yeah, and certainly a lot of wood in it. And lots of vanilla coming through for me now as well. Or at least we've got someone tuning in. Here's Connors. Better than Wimbledon. Thank you, Connors. That's only because Andy Murray got knocked out.
Don't speak of it. It's nice. Really got like really nice peaches flavors, like those nice tint peaches now and then you can get.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely so rich and got a really great mouthfeel as well. That one, it's really coating the palate.
Yeah, it's quite the treat.
Lots of brown sugar and kind of ice cream wafers, that sort of stuff as well. Stroop waffles.
Oh,
I love a stroop waffle.
You're hitting a nerve here. I'll bring some back.
Please do.
That's quite a starter. So Julien, you've been kind of looking through the Outturn, and there might be some drams in there. I suppose I know our members always look at certain distillery numbers that are potentially more popular than others because they're maybe more recognizable or people have their favorites. But the society is all about finding those kind of lesser known distilleries and maybe less celebrated whiskies. So what have you been finding from the July Outturn?
Yes, so essentially I'm a big fan of the underdogs when it comes to drams that you would not expect. Some names or some numbers, I should say, of this. You will probably know and have seen them quite a lot, but maybe you have not purchased them because they were not what you were looking for. But I think if you open your mind to possibilities, there are a few drams that will really surprise you on this Outturn. Some of them you will find will be released later this month, but I will also mention some that you can get online tomorrow. So we can start with one that you'll see online tomorrow, which is 39.245, which is a blaze of yellow. And this, I believe, has been matured in a bourbon cask, first fill. And this is one of those unsuspecting drams. At 10 years old, it would be a great expression anyway, coming from that distillery and coming from that type of cask. But sometimes it just really, really hits that balance that you can't help but wanting another dram. Is quite Moorish. Then, on the other side of things, so we're leaving Speyside and we're heading a bit south to the Southern Highlands. Some would debate it's not quite the Southern Highlands, but to a distillery that has several numbers in our catalogue. And here we're talking about 112.105, which is also a first fill bourbon barrel. And it's really nice. It's a bit of fruity madness that you should expect from that make, but it has an outstanding balance and quite a bit of maturity for that age. So I would seriously consider digging into that one. Now, on things that you will probably see next week, you will have a 9.243, which is a 14-year-old dram, and is also from a bourbon barrel, but this time in the light and delicate profile. And it really wears its name with pride. It's called Prima Ballerina, which tells everything you need to know about the balance that is struck here and how delicious these drams can be when you might not be suspecting it, not expecting it, but sometimes it just really surprises you. Now, if you're more into your smoke and peat, there's a reference that will be online tomorrow that I strongly suggest you try. It's 66.220, which will be called a Neanderthal's knapsack. Sorry, it's also 14 years old, and this is an extra maturation, which has gone from a bourbon hogshead into first fill American oak Pedro Jimenez sherry hogshead, and that enters the profile lightly peated. And it is one of those truly amazing drams with a lot of smoky and peated references, but not that strong that they would come into the peated or heavily peated profile. And it's quite well balanced by a sort of darker, heavier sherry. So that is also one to look out for.
Very good.
I think the 66s can be quite foodie drams. So I think perhaps in its bourbon state, you've got more, it's kind of farmyard, agricultural type cereally notes. But when you mix it with the Pedro Jimenez influence, it just becomes incredibly foodie. Like you compare that with charcuterie sat outside in the sunshine, if you have any sunshine. Yeah, it's a great combo.
Sweet cured meats is kind of the thing you would find very often in these combinations, and quite successful in my opinion.
Yeah, and a lovely combination of the smoke and the sherry cask as well there.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
I'd say as well, Distillery 39 kind of has a bit of I've got a bit of a soft spot for that one. Always has lovely stone fruits, just very juicy, very elegant. So yeah, that they sound like some good recommendations.
Yeah, you wouldn't be disappointed, really. They're well worth your while.
Yeah, and yeah, as you say, Julien, worth digging in and finding out some of those maybe less high profile distillery numbers. Well, Kim agrees, love the 66. So yeah, look out for that one. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Shall we crack open another dram?
Yep.
Why not?
All right. You want to introduce this one yet?
So we're looking at number 35.314. That's quite a high second number there. 314 casks from this distillery to date. This is in the light and delicate flavor profile, which is actually one of the lesser spotted. I think we tend to have an abundance of big, bold flavors across our outturns. So it always interests me when you get one that's got this kind of poise and balance that falls into the lighter, the light and delicate flavor profile. So again, this is first fill bourbon, 9 years matured, Speyside whiskey, and I think this one kind of reminds me of a walk in a pine forest in the sunshine, just sort of when the sun's setting, maybe. Really quite resinous, and some of those green sappy notes come through as well, but very balanced with maybe some sharpness of green apple, that kind of character. But yeah, one that you can take your time with and really pick apart and let it speak to you.
Yeah, quite sunshiny for me, quite summery. Mentholic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd mentioned pine sap, and I'm definitely getting a bit of that. That's lovely.
Oof. And yeah, to taste, it definitely is bold as well, but while having that restraint. That at 60.3%, I think it takes guts to describe something as light and delicate when you've got that kind of punch behind you, but I think it still does fit in that category.
Yeah, it's a really nice balance between, a really nice milky, cereally and piney, fresher vibe to it. And then it gets into a bit more stone fruit. It's really, really enjoyable. Still packs a punch. I'm wondering what it does with water.
Yeah, it might be quite light, but I certainly wouldn't call it particularly delicate. I mean, it really is quite punchy.
You need to give it water for the
Yeah.
delicate side.
Lots of citrus comes out of the water. You've got lemon curd and candied citrus peels, that sort of thing.
A lemon pith as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, even like elderflower cordial. Really evocative of summer.
Yeah, a lot more citric with the splashy water.
Cloudy lemonade.
Well, I can totally see myself in the garden with one of these, with some water in it. That really opens it up and makes it all the more summery. Lovely.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. It's a good one for a picnic on a sunny day.
Yeah, even stick that in the hip flask. That would do well. Nice. It's certainly a distillery favourite with members, isn't it? Number 35.
Yeah. It's.
I'm thinking. Sorry, Julian. When you go.
It's just a simple thing. You have these distilleries that never really stay long on the shelf. And when I was working at Queen Street, this was always one we would be inquired about as soon as they were released. That hasn't really changed, I think.
Yeah, it's quite a versatile spirit as well. So we see all different ages and cask types, and it really just does well in every possible combination of wood and aging.
I'm wondering, one of our first Muscatel extra maturation was it an extra maturation? I can't even remember.
I remember.
35,
yeah, I think
150.
I think it was full term though, actually.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a stunning drum. I've not forgotten it.
Yeah. Some live long in the memory.
Yeah, a huge variety of cask types and expressions from one distillery, but generally always fantastic.
Yeah, I think I could have that as a kind of longer drink as well with lots of ice.
Yeah, that'll be a good candidate
refreshing.
for an easy wine.
And Julian, you've been doing a series for Unfiltered and also going into the Outturn publication to kind of take a deep dive into the various flavour profiles that the Society works with. So where are we now? Coming into July, this is number 7, and you've been looking at light and delicate and really what contributes to that light and delicate character in terms of the production process and why we classify drams in the light and delicate flavour profile category. So what can you tell us about what you've been writing up about light and delicate this month?
I think the fun part is that when we work with flavor profile, we work on the output, so what the customers and members get into their hands. But it's not always reflected in one particular type of production style. A lot of things can happen from malting and distilling to the moment you release your whiskey. And I think for us, looking at these drams is acknowledging a different style of balance when you have a cask that does not overtake the spirit and a spirit that just holds its own, but without showing any sort of very prominent feature. It is just well balanced. It's on the edge. And these drams, they're not easy to come by because it's not really a balance that you find too often. Very often there's one of the elements in the tandem cask spirit that takes over. But in the light and delicate profile, you'd be hard pressed to determine which is the dominant element. very often you hear statistics like, oh, the cask is 80% of the flavor. Well, this shows you that this is not always true, particularly when you talk about single cask, single malt whiskies. That is one of those drams that shows you everything that whiskey can be. It's not too heavy, it's not too light, and it just shows you a different side. Because if you have smoke, you will miss out on some of the lighter elements of flavors. If you have a big, bold, fruity character, like in the Distillery 112, for instance, that will not come across either. So you need to have something that is just relaxed enough and just mild enough that you can really dig into the layers and look at what this really is made of. So here, I think prominently for these drams, you can say that it's generally, well, it is unpeated spirit, and it is most often, if not always, American oak, and nearly always charred, because whatever the distillery, even if it comes from a distillery that has a slightly more sulfury profile, if you have a good cask that filters out all of this, thanks to the carbon layer in a bourbon cask, for instance, well, you end up with a spirit that is well balanced. And if the cask is just gives a mild extraction, nothing too exuberant, well, then you end up with this. And that is pretty phenomenal, because it's not, as I said before, it's really not common. I don't know how many we've had. I think we've had only 130 of those so far since 2014. So it's not commonplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking there to see some stats, and from casks bottled this year, light and delicate only makes up 2%. So it kind of shows what a rarity they are. Really fascinating to explore that profile.
Yeah, and we've got a great series that Julien's been working on all year, as I said, where he's taken each of these society flavour profiles and really kind of digging into what makes those whiskies fit into those specific flavour profiles, what part of the production or the maturation, what's happening, that we sit there on the tasting panel and say, oh, this is a light and delicate dram. So it's really interesting, I mean, and incredibly educational to dig into that work that Julien's been doing, and very readable as well, I should say.
Thank you.
No, but that's a cracking dram. It's so good that and so drinkable that I just finished mine. Good to see you boys doing the
right
same.
Behind you.
Right, in that case, we'd better put another whiskey in our glasses. What we got next, Euan?
Yeah, so a bit more experimental with this one, number 64.129 in the spicy and sweet flavour profile. The real intrigue here is the cask type. So it's been additionally matured, spent the first part of its life in ex-bourbon hogshead, and then we had some special casks made at a cooperage in Spain called Herfa Cooperage, I think that's how you pronounce it. And these were heavily toasted virgin oak, 70% of the cask being American oak, so giving you all the lovely toasty vanilla coconut notes, and 30% being European oak, so giving you a bit of dried spice and sort of exotic notes to it as well. So quite wood forward. I think we've had maybe about 40 odd of these casks made, and we've reused some, so you get a slightly milder impact in those cases. But yeah, really interesting to just do a bit of experiment, working with a particular cooperage in this case, and seeing how it goes. I mean, I get all sorts of kind of rum notes in this one. Lots of kind of roasted pineapple. You've got spiced rummy vanilla, maybe a bit of allspice, nutmeg, that kind of thing as well. So this is 12 years old, Speyside region, 246 bottles.
Yeah, it's fantastic on the nose. There's a note of the Victory V lozenges, that kind of bit of aniseedy, but that's definitely coming through for me.
I think the European oak here brings a near sherry cask kind of vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly with these as well, they if you sample them after maybe 3-6 months, the wood is quite aggressive, but then you have to kind of be patient and leave it to it goes through a bit of a barrier, and then all of that stuff starts to really calm down, and you get a much more integrated. So I think it would be easy to kind of go, oh, we need to get this out because the cask's very active, but actually if you persevere in true Leith style, you end up with something pretty special, I think.
Yeah, and this is at a good length of time in the custom cask, right?
Yeah, almost 3 years. So it was at 9 years old that we shifted it, and then it was bottled at 12. So yeah, you're talking roughly 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's tremendous. Pecans, walnuts, yeah.
Toffee, coffee, fudge, tablet. Tannins are definitely there in the taste, but I quite like how extreme the flavor profile is, and definitely get a lot of incense as well. There's a sort of medicinal, wispy wood smoke, almost like you're at the cooperage while they're toasting it.
Yeah.
Getting some aged French plum brandy, like vieille prune kind of thing. And
how do you go about, with these custom casks? Do you just come up with a kind of recipe for the cask that you want specifically made for us? How does it work?
Really based on what kind of flavor associations with different things. So toasted New American oak, as I said, you're going to get lots of heady vanilla and toasted coconut, that sort of thing. So it's kind of just a well educated assumption on what kind of flavors you're going to achieve. We also got, as part of the same batch, we got 60-40 split, so that we're able to compare. We did put a lot of the same distillate into them as well, so that you could really mix and match and sort of test and see what the differences were. But yeah, I mean, there's an element of trial and error, but of course it only goes in a bottle if the tasting panel give it a thumbs up. So and this one, got a big thumbs up.
So you could have a similar dram that's in a 70% American, 30% European, compared with a 60-40 mix, and see what the kind of difference is, and try and work out what the difference in influence is there. Yeah,
exactly. Those are the only two we've done, but obviously, you could go 50-50, and then almost, in a single cask, you're almost taking a blender's approach, but you're doing it via the wood. So instead of mixing two different types of cask together, you're sort of getting that impact in the one vessel. So that's quite intriguing as well, just kind of, the way to think about it and approach it.
Yeah. And can you approach cooperages that you've got a relationship with in Jerez and say exactly what you want to whatever specification you want in terms of the different wood types and how you want it put together?
Yeah, exactly. So you can specify everything from, the length of air seasoning that the staves have had, the length of toasting time, the temperature, whether you want to then add a char layer, the species of oak, all that kind of stuff you can play with. So really infinite possibilities just within one variable, the cask itself, or not one variable, you know what I mean? Lots of variables to do with one element of the maturation.
One aspect of the infinite variables. Yeah, I think it's fascinating that just that one variable, that one aspect of the maturation process can have so many different angles to it. What do you think, Julien?
Yeah, that is a splendid dram. I think this is not the first one of that configuration that I've tasted. I think we released a 105, 125 from Distillery 125. We released one. I think it was last year or something like that. So that was pretty special as well. I think it was the same makeup, 70-30.
I always seem to mention the same example, but there was one from Distillery 68 that was called a newly built acoustic guitar, and they all have that character. But I always bring that one up. But it smelled exactly like if you just sniff a newly built acoustic guitar. Really, great smell. Speaks to the craftsmanship.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right, brilliant. I just added a wee bit of water to mine just to...
Yeah, it works well.
Yeah, it works very well.
Get a lot of coffee now. Coffee beans and mocha, tiramisu, that sort of thing.
Getting a very, very thick balsamic glaze as well.
Fantastic. And that, this is the spicy and sweet flavor profile. I mean, I guess we've all got different palates, and we all have different tolerances for spiciness. For me, this one is not particularly spicy, and certainly with a splash of water, there's not so much spice in it. It's got lovely sweetness, but it's maybe not what you'd always be expecting from spicy and sweet.
Yeah, it almost dances towards deep, rich, and dried fruits. There's quite a lot of kind of dried apricot and figgy kind of stuff happening in there. But I guess on the day, the panel had the vibe of spicy and sweet instead. But yeah, could fit in elsewhere as well.
Yeah, I think it kind of could go either way. Fantastic. Right, very good. Shall we introduce Helen?
Hello, how are you?
Very good. Lovely to see you. This is Helen Brownless, who works with our Dram Cierge member services team, dealing with members all the time on the phone, by email, answering queries and helping out to keep members on track, recommendations for drams and everything else. And Helen did a great job for July in terms of looking at the national days that are coming up. And we've got Canada Day, which is tomorrow, I think, the 1st of July. Then there's Independence Day in the US of A, 4th of July, obviously, and Bastille Day on the 14th of July. So Helen was tasked with coming up with cocktails which would work for each of these national days. And she's written them up for Unfiltered, which is live right now. So you can read more about it there. But yeah, Helen, tell us about your National Day cocktails.
Yeah, I'm not the world's greatest cocktail maker. Like Julien, I worked at Queen Street briefly, who actually make very good cocktails. But I was not the best cocktail maker while I was there, but I did enjoy it. And it was nice to have a set theme with this one for the national days, so you could use like their national spirits. So as you said, for Canada Day tomorrow, the 1st of July, I would say it's kind of very much kind of almost Mad Men inspired, because we've got a maple old fashioned, which is like a classic old fashioned, but instead of adding any crushed up brown sugar into it. You just use some maple syrup instead to add that sweetness. Which old fashions usually, bourbon is the usual spirit that you would use. But at SNWS, we obviously don't get bourbon very often, but our juicy oak and vanilla flavor profile can be a very good substitute. With the Outturn that's coming out tomorrow, actually, I would highly recommend the 1.268 for a bourbon replacement. It's really is lovely, like vanilla flavors coming through, very similar to a kind of bourbon style whiskey. And it's a very straightforward cocktail. All you need is some whiskey, a bit of maple syrup, and some orange or Angostura bitters, and you're going. So that's the kind of evening cocktail. And then for the next day, if you're feeling it a bit more, we've got the Caesar, which is kind of the Canadian version of a Bloody Mary. You make it with clamato juice instead of tomato juice. And clamato juice, I actually had no idea what it was until I was asked to write this feature. And it's tomato juice with a bit of clam broth in it, which I've told some people about it since I discovered what it was, and they thought it was disgusting. But from someone where I grew up, we actually have like an oyster festival every summer. I think it sounds actually quite delicious. And I like it more than tomato juice. A bit of brine in it.
Wait a minute. Can you make this yourself then, Helen?
Tomato juice, no.
No.
I would not recommend using your own clam broth, just in case there's any kind of, I can't even summarize the number of potential intestinal issues that you can get from fish. I highly recommend buying it. You can actually get it in pretty much most supermarkets. They now have like
Really?
There's like Polish sections, and then they also have like North American sections now as well. So you can get clamato juice pretty easily, actually. I found it my first go. And yeah, if you don't want the clammy frothiness, just go with your standard tomato juice. It is meant to be vodka. But if you are like me and you made yourself absolutely sick off of vodka when you were a teenager and you can't smell it anymore, peated whiskey goes really well in Caesars or Bloody Marys. And we've got really lovely peated whiskies coming up next month, actually. I got to try all these in the vaults on Monday. So I'd recommend the 53.409 if you want like a heavier peat, but if you want something lighter in this cocktail, I'd go for the 4.323 if you want something a bit more heathery and kind of floral. We do have 2 more peated drams coming up from distillery 66 and 16, but they have quite funky casks, so I don't think they'd be as good as in a cocktail. The 66 coming out tomorrow is actually in an XPX sherry cask. So I don't think that would blend very well with the flavors. And then the 16 is in a recharred cask. So again, they're quite heavy flavors on their own. So I wouldn't really use those for the cocktail mixing. But yeah, peated, I'd much prefer a peated whiskey in a Bloody Mary, which I think when it's whiskey, it's a Bloody Scotsman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go great in the Caesar for tomorrow. So yeah, have the old fashioned during the night and then the Caesar the night after to kind of cure all alcohol and salt.
Sounds good.
And then for 4th of July, again, classic cocktails, we've got the Old Pal, which is my favorite of the list because it's incredibly simple. It's equal parts rye whiskey, Campari, and dry vermouth. This was invented in the 20s at the famous Harry's New York bar in Paris. And it's actually kind of the brother or the sister cocktail of the, Julie, I'm going to ruin the French pronunciation, the Boulevardier cocktail?
Boulevardier, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Very well done.
It's like the less sweet version of a Boulevardier because it uses dry vermouth, whereas the Boulevardier uses sweet. And the spirit for a Boulevardier is bourbon, but this one uses rye whiskey, which is kind of a bit spicier and drier than bourbon would be. We did release a rye whiskey from SNWS a few months ago, but again, like the bourbon, we don't get them in that often. So as a replacement for the rye, spicy and dry profile is very good actually. And we have a 7.279 being released tomorrow. That's really good and really unusual because I've rarely seen a spicy and dry 7. Usually they're kind of more in the sweet, fruity, mellow profile. So that would be really good on this. And yeah, just really easy. Just a shot of whiskey, shot of Campari, shot of dry vermouth, and that's it. Stir it in some ice and pour it over, and you're done. So that's my favorite because I hate faff with cocktails.
Well, that's what I liked about these cocktails, because
Yeah.
even I could imagine myself
Yeah.
at home, compared with some of the fancy cocktails where you're looking at all kinds of, hard to obtain ingredients, and just really, really complicated. But yeah, these look great, and they look fairly straightforward.
That's good. That's what I was going for, because I'm not the biggest. I like a cocktail, but I can't really drink them all night, and I don't like them too sweet, or too many ingredients.
Yeah.
The other one that we have for US Independence Day is a Mai Tai, which was not the first cocktail that popped into my head when I thought of US independence, but it is actually huge over there. For some reason in the 1940s, the States got obsessed with Polynesian culture. They think psychologically it was because the Great Depression was done. They just wanted to think about beaches and sunshine and all those lovely things. So the Mai Tai was born in the 1940s in California by a man that owned a chain of Polynesian restaurants. And I think it's had a lot of different variations over the years. The one that I've written for Unfiltered uses pineapple juice, which I've read is not the classic, but I think it's the best kind with pineapple juice. I think it's the most summery. But you can also use orange juice as well.
I
And
don't
that's
remember
just
the first one, I'm afraid, Helen. So I can't show the recipe. You'll just
it's basically just rum and pineapple juice and a bit of orgeat, bit of almond syrup for sweetness. But yeah, it's a very good summery drink if you want to celebrate US Independence Day. And it's actually white rum that is predominant spirit, but you kind of trickle in, usually golden rum, but I quite like using SMWS rum because our rums are very strong, but they add that nice bit of spice to cut the sweetness in a Mai Tai. So you kind of drizzle that over just about like 15 mils, 20 mils, and on a full shot. And I'd recommend that.
And is that it? No, but we've still got Bastille Day, right?
We've got Bastille Day, which the best one.
The best one.
I don't have, unfortunately, have any recommendations for current SMWS ones because we are not releasing any Armagnac or Cognac this month. But Armagnac has been a firm favorite for me with SMWS. I won't lie, when I started working at Queen Street in 2018, I'd never heard of Armagnac. I'd never heard of it before. I was an absolute Philistine. I'd only ever heard of Cognac. And now I prefer Armagnac over Cognac. So yeah, the first one for Bastille Day that we have is, again, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. D'Artagnan? No, I can't. It's named after the fourth musketeer.
D'Artagnan. D'Artagnan.
There you go. I'm not going to attempt that, Julien. I did Spanish in school.
With a bit of a British twist, like D'Artagnan.
Spanish and Irish.
Did you never watch the cartoon when you were younger? The Three Musketeers?
No, I didn't know it was cartoon.
Oh.
I watched one that was called The Musca Hounds.
Yeah,
they were dogs.
Yeah. You people are too young, but yeah, D'Artagnan.
No, I only ever knew like the novel, and I never read the novel.
So what's a D'Artagnan?
That one uses my favorite Armagnac and citrus, basically orange juice and Cointreau, and some champagne and simple syrup. However, if you can't get champagne and you're using Prosecco or some other kind of bubbly white wine, I'd recommend skipping the simple syrup because it will be way too sweet with Prosecco, because Prosecco is so much sweeter than champagne. So yeah, just very fresh citrus flavors with a bit of bubbles in it. So a very ideal cocktail for the middle of July. And yeah, named after the fourth musketeer from Gascony. And then the other one that we have for Bastille Day is kind of a fresher twist on a sidecar. So it's elderflower sidecar. So it's got cognac, bit of lemon juice, some elderflower liqueur, and that's it. Again, all done. Because I don't like to spend too much time shaking or stirring.
Fantastic. Well, they sound magic, and if you need the recipes in detail, they are in July's Unfiltered, and they're all ready to go. And yeah, some brilliant suggestions and some good suggestions for society whiskies that can go into a cocktail. You like a wee cocktail as well, Euan?
I could be persuaded. Yeah, the Armagnac ones sound really interesting to me, and as luck would have it, we're actually currently bottling some rye and some Armagnac, but it's not in bottle yet. So maybe later on in the year we can dig out these recipes and try them with some new releases as well.
Yeah, excellent. And I think it's only when you go to, well, I mean, we've been fortunate enough, Euan, that we've been over to the Armagnac region and cognac as well, where, you know, they love a long drink, you know, they love to mix it up. It's not quite the same as the Scotch whisky world, where there's maybe more of a reverence for, you know, drinking things straight. It's very much part of their daily life to drink a longer drink and mix it up a little bit.
Remember the revelation of trying pre-dinner? We had a cognac and tonic.
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, what on earth's going on here? But you had the lovely, sweet, rich depths of the cognac, and then you had lighter, the kind of quinine and stuff to balance out the sweetness. And it was just a stunning pre-dinner drink. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Helen, for dropping in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, some really good suggestions. And again, check out Unfiltered for Helen's work, and some great photography as well, and some inspiration about summer cocktail drinking to celebrate these different national days. So yeah, thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your whiskey.
Yes.
Thanks
Cheers,
very
Helen.
much. See you later. Good stuff. Right. Some suggestions for summer cocktails. Can't go wrong with that.
Sounded really good.
Yeah, it sounded absolutely fantastic. Right, gents. Shall we wrap it up with dram number 4?
Number 135.46. So yeah, this is a great name. In case of apocalypse, break seal. And I'm a big fan of anything zombie apocalypse related in terms of movies and stuff. So I quite like the imagery that this one conjures up. It's in the heavily peated flavor profile. Again, much lesser spotted, similar to the light and delicate. When you've got both ends of the spectrum, I think you reach either end of them, less regularly than you land in between. So this is second fill ex-bourbon barrel. Of course, you've got the peated spirit. You've got a lighter influence from the cask, which actually lets the peat character shine through, because oak can, on occasion, have a masking effect on the smoke. So you quite often find that in less active wood, the smoke shines through better. Now, a couple of things get mentioned in here. German Rauschbier, which is, I think, smoked with beech wood, and also mezcal, which is that lovely smoky agave spirit from Mexico. And yeah, I mean, it's really full of character. Also mentions in the tasting note of oily sheep wool, blue peat smoke. I don't quite know where, I actually quite often get purple peat smoke if it's quite heathery or something like that. So yeah, don't know where blue peat smoke comes from.
Kinship with the Strathdown, I think.
Yeah.
Also slightly
It's
ashy.
Yeah, ashy, medicinal, foodie.
And we don't get a lot of whiskies that we get. We get our lightly peated, we get our peated, but we don't get so many that make it into that like top level of the category of heavily peated. They're kind of lesser spotted, aren't they?
Yeah. I think for me, the thing that pushes things into the heavily peated, there has to be a little bit of grubbiness in there. For me, that's kind of the defining one. So it's like black plumes of dense, damp smoke, and you can almost feel that it's grubby, and I like that. That just pushes it over the edge into the heavily peated category for me anyway.
Yeah.
It's quite fun that this is distilled under the same roof as the Dram 112.105 that I mentioned earlier. So if you want a really mad sort of comparison of what comes out of this distillery, that is one to try side by side.
Oof, and it kind of has a real chilly Scotch bonnet fire to it, almost like barbecue glazed ribs covered in chopped up Scotch bonnets. It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's got a meatiness definitely with that spicy note, and I mean, on the nose it's quite full on, but on the palate, it's really full on.
The cask is actually given quite a lot of sweetness as well, which is really nice. Really balances things out.
Quite a bit of very smoked chorizo in there.
Yeah, I mean, Helen was suggesting this as a potential ingredient in the Caesar, which was that Canadian twist on the Bloody Mary. I mean, that you can really see that working with a dram this powerful. Then that's really going to cut through and do the job.
Yeah, you can definitely see how the clamato juice would marry very well with that big peaty sort of seafaring smoke almost.
Yeah,
it's spicy too as well. So
yeah, I'm going looking for some clamato juice.
You'll find it next to the baconese.
I've never heard of clamato juice, but could be a convert after tonight. And it's a crazy distillery, as you say, Julien. It's like, from under one roof, it produces so many different varieties of whiskey, so many different expressions. It's like a Frankenstein distillery. Really.
I think we've got 4 numbers for them, 4 distillery codes for them, at least 5, maybe. I think 5 actually. Depend on the stills on the mash bill that's being used, and and the combination that and the configuration in which they choose to use the stills, which is it's mad, but they do manage to have quite a wide spectrum of different expressions.
Yeah. Well, this feels like a fitting dram to end our little Outturn preview on. This can send me off into the night quite happily, and it's going to live long on the palate, I think.
Yeah. Be tasting this one in the morning, I would think.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, gents, I can just say thank you very much for joining us. Yeah. I hope we can do it again. It's just nice to go through some of these whiskies, have a wee chat about what's coming out. And for members, obviously this is landing Friday morning, 9:00. And hope you've got some insights into some of these drams and other drams appearing throughout the month. So yeah, brilliant. thank you very much, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye. Have a nice evening.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Right, that's it, folks. I'm going to wrap up. It's been really good. I hope you get what you're looking for from the July Outturn, and all the best. See you soon.